Om Namo Bhag. Can you all see my screen and hear me, Prabhuji and Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. We can hear and see both.
Thank you, Bhakti-Ratnakar Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Narayanam Namaskrityam.
Naranchaiva Narottamam.
Naranchaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudire.
Tato Jayam Udire.
Nashtaprayesu Abhadresu.
Nashtaprayesu Abhadresu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke.
Bhagavate Uttama Sloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Reading from chapter 14, titled The Three Modes of Material Nature. And today we are going to discuss verse number 26. And if you want to repeat, you can definitely unmute. If anybody wants help in unmuting, you could just let me know in the chat, or you could just unmute yourself by clicking on the right button. All right. Mamchayo abhyucharena.
Mamacho vicharena.
Bhakti yogena sevate.
Bhakti yogena sevate.
Sagunam samatiya tyaitam.
Samagunan samatitaitam.
Brahma bhuya kikalpate.
Brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Mam chayo abhyucharena.
Mamacho vicharena.
Bhakti yogena sevate.
Bhakti
yogena sevate.
Sagunan samati tyaitam.
Sagunan samtitaitan.
Brahma bhuya kalpate.
Brahma
Bhuyaya kalpate.
Any Prabhujis or Matajis?
Mam chayo avicharena.
Mam chayo
abhyucharena.
Bhakti yogena sevate.
Bhakti
Bhakti
yogena
yogena sevate.
Sagunan samtitaitan.
Sagunan samtityaitam.
Brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Brahma
bhuyaya kalpate. Word by word meaning. Mam, unto me.
Mam unto me.
Cha, also.
Cha, also.
Ya, a person who.
Yah, a person who.
Abhyucharena.
Vicharena.
Without fail.
Without fail.
Bhakti yogena.
Bhakti yogena.
By devotional service.
By devotional service.
Sevate.
Sevate.
Render service.
Render service.
Sa, he.
He.
Gunan.
Gunan.
The modes of material nature.
The modes of material nature.
Samatitya.
Samatitya.
Transcending.
Transcending.
Etan.
Etan.
All these.
All these.
Brahma bhuyaya.
Brahma bhuyaya.
Elevated to the Brahman platform.
Elevated to the Brahman platform.
Kalpate becomes.
Kalpate becomes.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
One who engages.
One who engages
in full devotional service.
In full
devotional service.
Unfailing in all circumstances.
Unfailing in all circumstances.
At once.
at
at
once
once,
transcends the modes of material nature,
transcends the modes of material nature,
and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
and thus
and
comes to
thus
the level
comes
of
to the
Brahman.
level of Brahman.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Anyone would like to read this page, which is shown on the screen?
This verse is a reply to Arjun's third question. What is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activity, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna but his different planetary expansions such as Ram and Narayan. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his planetary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So, if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his planetary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone else would like to read this page?
This has already been explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders into Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire equality with Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of the gold mine. Thus, the living entity in his spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues, otherwise there would be no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the individual person, otherwise there would be no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualification is to become Brahman or free from all mental contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmeva san Brahmapyati. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively becomes one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one doesn't lose his eternal Brahman identity as an individual soul.
Thank you so much. Let's all chant together. Om Agyana Timirandasya
Jalasalakaya Chakshur
Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namo Shri Chaitanya Manovidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Dhammayena Swapadantikam Deham Shri Guru Shri Utpadakamalam Shri Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sanatana Raghunathan Sajivam Sadvaitam Savastam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sarvada Lalita Sri Vishakha Vidam He Krishna Krishna Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Namaste Saptakanchana Gauri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanusute Devi Pranamami Panchakalpatarusya Vairasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lachal Nivasa Nityaya Paramatmane, Suprabhyam Jagannathaya Temam. So thank you so much for joining this Sangha. And what a words, what a very powerful words Krishna is explaining. So now here Krishna is saying, Mam Chayo Abhicharena. So in Hindi, there is a wonderful word called Vyabhicharena. One who is Vyabhachari. One who is Vyabhachari? Does anybody
Recording in progress.
Does anybody in this does anybody from this audience would like to explain the meaning of Vyabhichari? If you know, you could just unmute and speak. If you're not speaking, you could mute yourself. I'm sorry. So if does anybody know the meaning of Vyabhichari? Krishna is using the word Abhyacharena. So this word Vyabhichari is very, very powerful. And here Srila Prabhupada is saying without fail. But also, in addition to that, there is also a meaning of Vyabhichari, one who is Vyabhichari. A person who is having a relationship with multiple people from the opposite gender is also called Vyabhichari. So here, Krishna is using such a very powerful word. He's saying Abhyacharena. The quote means Abhyacharena, as you can see here. Abhyacharena means the surrender or the loving devotional service has to be one and only one with Krishna, not with multiple gods, multiple demigods. We'll get into that. You could definitely do meditation, but here Krishna is using a very powerful word, abhicharana. Abhicharana means your eternal relationship with the Supreme has to be with one and only. And who is that? With Krishna. So Vyabhicharana means anybody who has relationship, if a gender male has multiple relationship with 5 or 6 ladies, and for that matter, if a person from the who is a lady having multiple relationships, that characteristic is called Vyabhicharana. That means there is an element of having multiple relationships. But here Krishna is using a very, very powerful word. That's why this verse is an eye-opener for bhakti yogis. That a person should be only dedicated, only should have a loving exchange with one and only. And who is that one and only? That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purna Purushottam Krishna. So Mamcha yo abhyacharena bhakti yogena sevate. How you do the relationship? With loving devotional service. Bhakti yogena sevate. Srila Prabhupada has many times have mentioned that bhakti yoga is nothing but loving devotional service. Saguna samati tyaitam. That means once you end up doing this, you will be elevated to Brahma Bhuyake Kalpate. That means you will elevate yourself by this devotional service. But the word is unalloyed, one and only, abhicharana, without any multiple relationship, with one and only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very, very powerful words to really discuss today. And today we're going to really use some of Srila Prabhupada's purport to give us that understanding. That means one who is engaged in full devotional service to one and only Supreme Personality of Godhead, without any form of one-many relationship or many-one relationship like that. It has to be one and only with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why in many places, Lord Krishna has saying, only surrender unto me. He has not said surrender into 33 crore demigods and whatnot. Krishna has many places has said something which is very, very powerful, and we have to just catch on to it. That if you surrender unto the Supreme, everybody else is taken care of. That like you have a tree, if you just water the roots of the tree, the stem, the leaves, and the branches, they all get the water. But if you just water the branches, water the leaves without watering the root, the tree might die because of lack of water. So we have to recognize who the main person is and how we can serve him. And the second thing Krishna goes on to say, Saguna Samati Kya Iyata Brahma Bhuya Ke Kalpate. That means once you start doing this devotional service, then you elevate yourself to the level of Brahman. That means you start recognizing yourself. What is Brahman in this case? Aham Brahmasi. That means we are spirit soul. Brahman is nothing but recognizing the soul within, that we are not the body, we are the spirit soul, and the spirit soul is part and parcel of the Supreme. And here, Krishna, in this 4 small verse couplets, have explained it so beautifully that you should only do devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with, and the word is unalloyed, without any division of labor in trying to have that loving exchange established. And then quite a lot of time when we start thinking about, merging with the Supreme, getting the Sadgati, or, so we should recognize that if there are two persons, the soul, we are part and parcel of the Supreme, we are the individuals, and we have a Supreme personality of God, Krishna, and we have to have that unalloyed loving relationship. So if I, as a person, as a devotee, merges with the Supreme, then where is the loving relationship? You have already merged with the Supreme. Then when you basically start the process of liberation, as many people resort to, then there is no relationship. If a person has totally merged into the Param Brahma, in this example, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no relationship. See, that is exactly where devotees are different. Devotees want a lasting relationship with the Supreme. That's where we are the servant and we have a Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have to serve him. We have to, when we serve him, we grow that loving relationship. When you grow that loving relationship, we derive bliss. So the intent here is not to merge with the Supreme Brahman, where many other yogic principles, they resort to having the merging with the effulgence of the Supreme. Our process of Bhakti Yoga, as Krishna is so wonderfully explaining about Brahma Bhuyaki Kalpate and then Bhakti Yogena Sevate. That means in order to have that unalloyed relationship, you have to have a sense of service. If there is no service, then there is no relationship. You think about it, you have a kid, he or she wakes up, you give him or her food. Then when she goes for college or when he goes to college, he says, mother and dad, bye-bye. So there is that loving exchange. And that loving exchange can only be fostered by service. Without the service, there is no relationship. So very clearly Krishna is explaining here, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena, abhyacharena. That means vyabhicharena means adulteration with multiple, but here without any adulteration, abhyacharena. That means unalloyed, not with many personalities, not with many. So here we have to recognize, we have to think about Krishna like how Gajendra thought about Krishna. Gajendra didn't resort to, calling out to Indra, hey, Indra, come and help me. He didn't say that. He only resorted to asking for the help from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Draupadi Maharani, he didn't say, this demigod, Varunji, come help me when the disrobing was happening. He was just resorting to Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj, he was not resorting to calling out to many different people, unalloyed, abhyacharina. That should be the sense of devotion, and that is where, and Srila Prabhupada in the purport which Prabhuji read is saying, when we elevate ourselves by doing devotional service, we become Brahman. And when we become Brahman, we are qualitatively one and fully the same as the Supreme. But qualitatively doesn't mean that we are quantitatively the same. So here Srila Prabhupada gives the example about the gold from a mine and the gold in a earring. Like say, for example, if you have a little gold from the gold mine, which comes in, and then your wife or your kid tries to make a earring out of it, a gold earring out of it. And then when the person, your wife or the kid in this example, wears the earring, you don't end up saying that this is a gold taken from the gold mine and is a earring I'm wearing made from the gold mine. It has excavated from the gold mine. You don't say that. You just say it is the gold earring. That's it. So likewise, our position is one and exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are spirit souls. We have um, qualitatively, we are one the same. We have liking for, prasadam. We like to dress up. Lord Krishna likes chapan. He likes to dress up. He likes to get Springa, like we end up doing in our temples every day. Every day we do twice dress change of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the process is very much the same. Our liking and his liking is the same, but the magnitude of his uh, purview or his magnitude of his consideration is tremendous, and we are not quantitatively the same, but qualitatively we are the same. And that's where the Prabhupada and Krishna is explaining about the importance of Brahman. And because we are the spirit soul, and in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. That means you can only understand the Supreme Personality of God as a devotee. You cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead without being a devotee. Let's clear ourselves by saying that whenever there is any expression of love, whether it is Bhashya love by Yashodamai, whether it is Shantaras by Balramji, or whether it is Dasharath Ras like Hanumanji. In all these aspects, there are rasas may be different, but the only way to understand the Supreme in a very unalloyed way, Abhyacharina, is Bhaktyamam Abhijanati. Only a devotee can understand the Supreme. Nobody else can understand the Supreme. Like Ravan, he was trying to, create a lot of problems. He want to have a hostile relationship. Not right. Just can't do it. Likewise, Kamsa, he was trying to think about Krishna all the time, but in a very unfavorable way. Just couldn't understand. The only way you could understand the Supreme is Bhaktyamam Abhijanati, as it is mentioned towards the end of Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter. Only by loving devotional service, only by performing devotional service and becoming a Bhaktya, that means becoming a devotee, you can only understand Supreme, because you will have the true consciousness. That is the reason why devotees, they do not want to merge. They do not want Shakti, they do not want Bhukti, they don't want Mukti. They just want to be associated with Bhakti. And that Bhakti is nothing but the true devotional service. When you have the devotional service, when you end up doing something for the Supreme, which is not reactive, you end up getting some bliss. And that bliss only increases as you end up doing more and more. Then you start recognizing and understanding the Supreme, his pastimes, his likings, his dislikings, his festivals, his aspirations. And whenever you end up having some challenges in your life, you derive rational to solve the problem from the spiritual angle, and then you become very much blissful, because your life becomes Krishnaized when you end up doing. This is not a chess game, or this is not a prodigy kind of a situation that only within 6 months you attain this. It's a way of life. It's not a beginning or an end. It's so, and that's where, so we have to understand the difference between Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And that's where it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahmetmi Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti sabdai yate. That means, so what is Brahman, which is mentioned in this verse? And we have been talking about it. This is someone is not on yet. Yeah. So Brahman is the spirit soul, and Aham Brahmasmi. So we are part and parcel of the Supreme. So we are essentially spirit souls, and when we start doing devotional service, we start recognizing the relationship, and then we become, we have the knowledge. So Brahman realization is a knowledge-oriented realization of the Supreme, which is the Jnana Yogis. And then the next set of realization is the Param Brahma realization or Paramatma realization, because in our heart, we have the soul. When the soul leaves the body, we are not, we go back to Godhead. But at the same time, with the soul in our heart, we have the Paramatma, who is always looking at us all the time. So as the soul and super soul reside in our heart, the Paramatma or Param Brahma in this example. So Brahman in this case is the soul, and which is part and parcel of Param Brahma, and Param Brahma is the super soul, which is nothing but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is always watching, as we discussed last time about that bird, where a bird is watching another bird who is eating the fruits of the tree. So the super soul, Param Brahma, is watching the Brahman or the soul eating the fruits. And that's when we start transcending our life in the thought process of devotional service, we become Brahman, because we are all spirit souls. We are not the body, we are the soul. Aham Brahmasmi. And once we seek the internalization and understand who we are the spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi, and we are part of Param Brahma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Super Soul. And the relationship is nothing but amplifying the process of Bhakti Yoga, which is exactly should be our way of life. Once we end up doing that, our life is fulfilled. We really do not want anything else. We really do not want to merge like mukti, or we really do not want some form of power or shakti. We just want bhakti in our lives. And once we have the bhakti in our life, we are basically solidifying the relationship between the soul and super soul by Brahman and Param Brahman. And once we end up doing that, we are leading a very blissful life. So the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan is the same object, but the Brahman realization is the impersonal realization, just like the ray of the sun, which is, you can think about the ray of the sun is nothing but the Jnani realization. And once you understand the ray of the sun, you think you know about the sun. Fine, but that's a very limited, it's not an incorrect understanding of sun, but it is an incomplete understanding of the sun. So the Brahman is more like the ray of the sun, but the Paramatma or Param Brahma realization is the localized, where they seek that the effulgence is present in our heart, and that is nothing but understanding the ball of fire of the sun globe in this example. And the third realization is the Bhagavan realization, is the personal realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has a name. His name is Krishna. His name is Jagannath. His name is Nrsingadev. His name is Varahadev, and he has a form. He has a pastime. He likes something. He dislikes something. He has dear devotees. So he's the personalized form. Our bhakti yoga is all about personalization. Everything in this current world where there is UI UX going on, you know that everything is about personalization. Once you log in based on your traits, based on AI, machine learning, you are given certain content which you can work on. Exactly. Bhakti yoga is the most personalized form of yoga, or the union with the Supreme, where you are personally serving him, you're giving him bhoga, and after the bhoga is offered, it becomes prasad or the remnants, and you undertake that. Once you start Krishnized food or prasad in your life has lack of reactions. So your lifestyle becomes more spiritualized by this entire process. And we have given the examples of calling your mom more like a more impersonalized relationship than the FaceTiming with your mom, slightly better, but still not there. But then when you're serving your mom or serving the personal form of your mom by massaging her feet, that's the Bhagavan realization, which is exactly the difference between Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So, and just to add to that, we have we want to understand why this transcendental knowledge we are learning is very important. Because if we do not know this transcendental knowledge, as is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the doubts which are in our hearts because of the path we just spoke about, the Shakti, Mukti, it won't get clarified if we do not have this knowledge. And that is where once the knowledge or the light of knowledge comes, the darkness goes away. And that's where Krishna mentioned, Jnana Ashina Atmana. That means this weapon of knowledge is going to cut the darkness of ignorance from our heart. And that is the reason why we want to meet every Saturday and understand this transcendental knowledge, and that will clear our heart from any ignorance. And then the question becomes when we should, and when does this process have to be inculcated? Because the Lord says, Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chandra, wherever there's, there is miscreants, Lord comes. This miscreants comes in our life as well. When we have challenges, we do not recognize the difference between good and bad. That is at that time we realize the importance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or lack of it in our lives. And that is when we should recognize that in the past, Lord has come when there are crises. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, in this age of Kali Yuga, there are challenges. And every time when you resort to this path of loving devotional service or Bhakti Yoga, then Lord is always there. And any outcome the Lord comes up with, we take it as his remnant. And that's the reason why it's not as if devotees do not have challenges in their life, but devotees have strength to deal with the challenges of the life. So the reason why we should understand transcendental knowledge is very clear from Bhagavad Gita. And when these challenges come, how we should respond to it. And then in Bhagavad Gita, how we should achieve this transcendental knowledge. Krishna mentions evam parampara praptam. That means this transcendental knowledge has to be acquired through the disciplic succession. Evam parampara praptam. That's the reason why we shouldn't go anywhere where there is no parampara, there is no lineage, and we should always seek to get this knowledge from a bona fide source, all the way from Krishna, Manu, Ikshaku, and Vivaswan, and all the way to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the lineage Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and the Guru Parampara. And if there is no Parampara, then that is not how you should achieve the transcendental knowledge. Krishna is very clear in saying, Evam Parampara Praptam. And then, who can understand this transcendental knowledge? Krishna says, Bhaktu Sime Sakha Cheti. Only as a devotee, like we took another verse where we understand Bhaktamam Avijanati. Likewise, Krishna says, only a devotee or a friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti, Bhakto Sakha, devotee, friend, can only understand the Supreme. That means you have to recognize that in order to seek knowledge from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have to be favorable. And what is the actual process? Pariprashnena Sevaya. As you know, Bhagavad Gita is a frequently asked question. It was a question answer session between Arjuna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Pariprashnena Sevaya. The real process to acquire this knowledge is by inquiring submissively in a forum which Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas have ended up saying, Bhakti Vriksha. So the who, why, what, when is all very clear. And here Krishna giving a very powerful message, Abhicharena, unalloyed. So after reading Bhagavad Gita in a very deep and close understanding in the association of devotees like here, there are many things which will get clear. Even 20, 30 years back, we all had that misconception about, we have so many gods, we really do not want to sort of disappoint anyone, and we have that inherent fear. But Krishna, in many different places, through the Bhagavad Gita as it is, through the purports, he has made it very, very clear through the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, how we should think about it. Not giving water to the root is a big problem. And you end up, if it's a huge tree and you end up watering the leaves which are far off, you are eventually asking for trouble. So we can go on and on. A very powerful verse to meditate on a weekend. Krishna is very clearly mentioning that you should always do loving devotional service unto me, and that will make you understand, or that will get you to a Brahman platform by which, as you do more and more devotional service, you would know more and more about me. And as you know more and more about me, Krishna will reveal himself. Krishna will choose to reveal himself to one of us, who Krishna wants. We cannot force Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead to reveal himself. Through the process of the loving devotional service, Krishna reveals himself. That's the reason why when you see there are acharyas, there are senior devotees, like Prabhupada, whenever there is trouble, Krishna has revealed himself in a very different way. And Krishna will give you the knowledge to deal with the challenges in our lives, and our life will be sublime. So we can go on and on, but like to hear more questions and discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna. If you have any comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thanks a lot. So I have a question. I hope there is no noise from my side because my kids, their friends are there. So,
absolutely, no problem.
Yes. So first, I wanted to introduce my friend Prabhuji, who has joined today, Bhakti Vriksha Vipin, who stays in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So Vipin, thanks for joining the class. So I will just have one question, one doubt. In fact, I have gone through that parampara system where we have listed down for ISKCON Prabhuji. So I believe that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because we are from the Gaudiya Vaishnava and it comes from the Madhvacharya's that disciplic succession, right, Prabhuji? And the same Madhvacharya who is related with Udipi Sri Krishna. Right, Prabhuji?
Yes. So thank you so much. So let's first welcome Vipin Prabhu. I see him with a loud Hari Bol.
Hari
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 Bol,
Bol.
Hari
Hari
bol,
Bol.
Hari bol.
So
Vipin, you can introduce yourself.
Hari Bol Prabhuji.
Hari Bol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, me and my wife both are joining. My wife Gargi Tyagi is also joined.
Okay. So let's welcome Gargi Mataji as well with Vipin Prabhu with a loud Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. So Pratap Prabhu, if you can add Prabhuji and Mataji into our WhatsApp group, that will be wonderful.
Sure, Prabhuji. I will do that. I will add it.
So second question, Pratap Prabhu, our parampara is Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. Brahma means Brahmaji. So our lineage has actually come from Brahmaji because Brahmaji, as we heard last time, the first quadruple expansion is Karnadaksha Vishnu, and from there, then from each universes into each universes, Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters, and when he is trying to manage the universe, Brahmaji is coming from his navel through a lotus, and Brahmaji, the first expansion, Narad Muni, the Rudras, and so our and Brahmaji has written Brahma Samhita, and as you have heard, Govindam Adi Purusam Tamaham Bhajami. Brahmaji has said who the Adi Purusha is, the first and foremost, and he says Govindam Adi Purusam Tamaham Bhajami. That means, so our philosophy starts from Brahmaji, and down the line, as you rightly said, Madhvacharya, the 12th century saint from Udupi, started the diversification of Bhakti Yoga. So definitely our inspiration has been Brahmaji, Madhavacharya, Gaudiya, where our process of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the 15th century, who came from Gaudadesh. Gaudadesh happened to be the area around that time, and so we are Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. So if anybody asks us who are our parampara originate from, it originates from Brahmaji, Madhvacharya, Gaudiya, and to a large extent, our ISKCON Srila Prabhupada has mentioned. So that's why when we start deliberating about parampara, we are very much Brahma Madhava Gaudiya ISKCON Sampradaya. So we have a founder Acharya, but our true Sampradaya, as you rightly said, is Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. Does that answer your question?
Very much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna.
Does it answer your question, bro? Yeah, okay. I think
Yes.
You said yes. All right. So any other comments, reflections? We have devotees. If you would like to unmute and reflect on this verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danvat Pranamal to Srila Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, thanks for a very comprehensive covering of the bhakti and devotional service, Prabhuji. Because most of us, we hear about devotional service, but there is a very lack of clarity what exactly is devotional service, Prabhuji. You covered it very well. It is the service with love, right, Prabhuji? So, Prabhuji, while you are reading this verse, while reading the purport of Srila Prabhupada and explaining, I just want to add to your some metaphors, which with our physics, basically, what we are dealing with, the spirit and the body is metaphysics, and the material physics is a subset of that, right, Prabhuji? That so first Avya Bicharena, which Krishna clearly says that those with the unburdened mind, where the mind is basically not distracted in 100 directions, right, Prabhuji? So that is one of the point which you are trying to elaborate. Unburdened mind means we should not be distracted between various gods, demigods, and all of that, and also between various other activities which can take away from uh, our bhakti. So unburdened mind, and also Krishna in 1866 says that Mamekam Sharanam Raja, that just um, dovetail your consciousness to me. You don't have to go here and there. Sarva dharma, there are no other dharmas, upadharma, chala dharma, all those dharmas we don't have to follow. Just follow. And for that, we don't need any education. We don't have to be master of scriptures. Just wholeheartedly give our surrender ourselves to Krishna's lotus feet. That is very easiest thing he is asking us to do. So abhyabhicharena, that's a very easy. On the second line of this shloka, Prabhuji, we talked about, Prabhupada has talked about.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Get to the sloka.
Prabhupada has talked about that there is a qualitative and a quantitative aspects of our devotion, Prabhuji, which is nothing but the bhakti, what we call. What is bhakti? We define bhakti in simple layman's terms. Bhakti is nothing but loving devotional service. As you have rightly said, how we take care of our kids without any unalloyed. We don't have any expectation that the kid is going to take care of me. We do without any unalloyed devotion. We take care of the kids. So similarly, unalloyed we have to do. But how the metaphor which I want to relate here, what Prabhupada has written is, when I was reading that, when Prabhuji was reading, I realized, Prabhuji. Sorry, I'm relating it to little bit of physics, so pardon me if somebody doesn't like physics. The electricity flows, Prabhuji, only when there is a potential difference. Even the flow of water, if somebody is not interested in electronics, the flow of water also, when from a higher gradient to lower gradient, similarly the electricity flows from a higher potential to a lower potential. So what is bhakti is nothing but the current, Prabhuji. What I mean to say is that the current will only flow when there is a potential difference. If the potential difference is zero, there is no flow of current. So the bhakti only comes when we think we don't have our false ego that I'm equal to God. God is at a higher level and I am at a lower level. God doesn't expect us to be at that level, but for the bhakti to flow, because of course we are definitely qualitatively one, but not quantitatively. So there is a difference whether we accept or not. So point which I wanted to drive here is that there should be a potential difference. Similarly, because of the potential difference as the current or the water flows from higher to lower, similarly the bhakti flows, prayers go up, blessings come down, right? We say. So that is bhakti, Prabhuji, which comes down from the God. That's what he is trying to tell. So Krishna is trying to tell us in this verse. In the third line of that verse is, Prabhuji, that if you are bringing the verse, the third line of the verse is, Prabhuji, that's where I want sa gunat samatityan, the transcendence. I want to highlight on the word transcendence. What is transcendence? Again, I will give the metaphor, Prabhuji. The escape velocity, Prabhuji. When does an satellite is put into an orbit, Prabhuji? When when the speed of it crosses the gravitational pull of the earth, right, Prabhuji? That is what in layman's terms. So here also the transcendence is of the three modes of nature can only be done by this bhakti yoga, Prabhuji. We only transcend when we have that loving devotional service. We don't feel the pain when we are serving someone we love. We don't try to complain, right? We don't try to criticize.
the three cancers of our mind, which we call criticize, complain. We don't do that because we have transcended. Our love is much above and beyond that. So similarly, here Krishna is clearly telling that you'll transcend the modes of nature, samatityan, which is the transcendence from the three modes, the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. In the fourth line, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. This I want to finish my statement saying that what is Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate? We get enlightened, we get the knowledge. Similarly, when the circuit is complete, the circuit is we call realization of the circuits, like how we did in electronics. The circuit is realized when the whole circuit is complete and all parts, all the capacitors, resistors, they all are doing their function. So similarly, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, we get the knowledge only when we try to connect ourselves with the, by surrendering and avyabhicharana with the Lord Prabhuji. Hare Krishna will be over.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so relatable the way you explain. Abhicharana means unalloyed or with full focus, as Bhakti Ratnakar Prabhu mentioned, with full focus without any distraction. And the second thing, Bhakti Yogena, that means when you end up doing devotional service. And Saguna Samati Dhyana, that means when you get rid of these three modes of material nature and you transcend above, then you start seeing Krishna in everyone. See, and the fifth thing, then you resort to you uplift yourself into a Brahman platform. So as you can see, these four lines are very, very powerful. Unalloyed, without deviation. What we end up doing? Loving devotional service. See, the only time we end up acquiring knowledge only when we realize we know nothing. Our knowledge acquisition process starts when we realize how much we don't know. If we always pretend that we know everything, like the current or the potential energy which comes from a higher position to a lower position, it will never flow. If you end up thinking that you are Bhagavan, your knowledge acquisition stops there. That's the reason why we all are servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Because we are servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, the knowledge flows. So anytime we puff it up with ahankar, with ego, the knowledge acquisition stops. So that's the reason why humility is a yardstick for our knowledge acquisition. And Prabhuji, and that humility will help us get knowledge, and also that will help us transcend these three modes, the three modes, mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Once we transcend these three modes, we would start seeing Krishna in an animal, in a tree, in a grass, in everybody around the temple. And that is where we had discussed earlier about Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari sees Lord in a temple, and Madhyama Adhikari sees in a higher devotee. But Uttama Adhikari sees Lord in everybody, irrespective. So he has transcended. And we all, it's a work in progress. We all are trying to transcend these three modes of material nature through our actions, through our knowledge acquisition. And instead of really getting too much hung up with so many different gods and trying to please everybody, Krishna is very clearly mentioning about unalloyed devotional service can help us transcend, and you can only understand the Supreme through this process. There is no reason to go anywhere else. Prabhuji mentioned it by giving example of science, and Krishna can reveal himself in the hearts of devotees in the form of a physicist, in the form of a chemist, in the form of an engineer. And if it has touched your chord with these very powerful verses, you have understood it. Otherwise, we will be constantly arguing and we will never understand the principles of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you for sharing. Any other comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Nice class. And also thank you to Bhakti Ratnagar Prabhu, who nicely explained the verse. Yeah. So just wanted to know, Prabhuji, a mother likes the kid, Prabhuji, because mother serves the child. Right? So without service, there is no. So there is no like, there's no love, right? So basically, the service and love both go hand in hand, right? So without service, you can't love anyone. So for example, like mother love. So Prabhuji, I have a small so Prabhuji, when I chant, right, is mentioned in the also the Mahaprabhu mentioned in the Ashtakam, right? Like we have to be like kind of Daruropi Suni Chena, right? So we have to be humiliated. So Prabhuji, how to get that feeling? Because when I chant, Prabhuji, sometimes because only chanting is okay, but you have to be that mindset that that feeling should be there, right? So without that feeling, if you chant that you chant may. So just want to know like how to develop that that feeling, that humility kind of feeling. I'm lower than the
Yeah, so very nice part. So what happens is some Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj puts it in a very nice way. Once devotees take initiation, they realize they're Brahma, they become Brahma, and when once they chant 8 rounds properly, they think they're floating in air. So that the chanting is actually has to be done, but at the same time we should recognize the bhakti starts with A for association. More and more we associate through festivals, through services, through service and love, as you said, is one and the same. Once you serve prasadam on the floor, once you clean the temple, once you clean the corners of the parking lot, then all the ego, all the ahankar will go for a toss. So more and more you associate, you realize, see, sometimes what happens is whenever you associate with somebody, the qualities rub on you. And when you see exemplary devotees around you, Srila Prabhupada, when he was coming to America, people were saying, Srila Prabhupada, you're going to America. But Prabhupada said, no, Srimad Bhagavatam is going to America. I'm just carrying Srimad Bhagavatam to America. So look at the humility in that. So when you mix with exemplary souls, your the humility will rub on you, and that's when the chanting along with service, the practical service, will make more and more. And it's a work in progress. After 2 years, you'll be humble, and after 3 more years, after 5 years, you'll realize that you have become more humble. So it's so these devotees, what you see in temple, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years back, they are not as humble as they are now, because it's over a period of time, over a period of giving your way of life or trying to inject that humility in way of life through practice. They have built that process of humility, and it basically starts with association. And once the humility and chanting happens together, chanting and humility go hand in hand. And once you get both of these traits, you'll receive more and more these classes whenever Maharaj speak, or whenever you get an opportunity. You will realize that your reception Yes, as Prabhu mentioned, if you are at a lower level, water will, and somebody who is Acharya is giving out mercy, then your ability to receive it forcefully will be more when you are way below. When you feel like a servant, you will receive the knowledge very wonderfully. Okay, bro?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. So I was attending one of the classes from Rajesh Prabhuji. So he was saying that, do some kind of lower kind of activities, okay, which will, remove your ego and whatever your ego you have. Right? So do some cleaning. So the way you say it, he also said the same thing. You have to do some kind of cleaning activities, do book distribution, right? So those kind of activities, if you do automatically, you will come into the stage where, you will have that mindset, you won't feel that when you chant, you will always feel that humility mood will come.
Absolutely. And Prabhuji, uh, let me share my experience. In 2005, when I joined ISKCON New Jersey, Central New Jersey, I was coming in pant and kurta to temple, but after serving this that, when the time to change into dhoti came into my life, it was a big humbling experience. The first time I was in an apartment at the time, and what will my neighbors feel? It was a true humbling experience. And over a period of time, over a period of this, 17 and 20 years, now I can go to New York City without any airs, without any attitude, in dhoti and kurta with tilak, right in the Fifth Avenue when we take Lord Jagannath on the second Saturday of June. And actually, it has numbed me in terms of humbling me. So the first time you end up changing to dhoti and come to the temple in a regular manner, it is a big humbling experience. And everybody, when every step of the way, whether it is transforming from pant to dhoti or transforming from your clear head to a tilak head, and then standing in Oak Tree Road, distributing Bhagavad Gita in cold with this, and going in Rath Yatras right in the middle of the biggest city in the world, New York City, on the biggest avenue in the world, Fifth Avenue, uh, then all the humility will keep, all the ego will keep crushing down, and you will become totally, it will get rid. And then someday you'll end up getting rid of your mustache. You realize that it is a truly humbling experience, and you have no attitude after that.
I always feel, Prabhuji, how you do that. Whenever I see the New Year Ratha Yatra and other stuff. But whatever Niranjan Prabhu mentioned, right? One of the things also I heard in one of the speech, I do not know, I forget. It also depends upon actually what stage we are. It's not necessarily that, okay, when somebody started Krishna consciousness or association, even the previous birth where they stopped. So you could have seen that, okay, somebody who came to association maybe 1 year back, and it's very easy for them to get advanced and getting into completely embedded into the system. And somebody, from a long time being associated, but still there's lot of ego, lot of, those negative things are there, still struggling. So that is also is there, which where the person is, I mean, in the previous birth, where they stopped the Krishna consciousness, which part, which page in Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is also there. And with mercy, I think I heard it, Prabhu, somewhere, but
Yeah.
I do not recall it.
No, you're right.
Yes.
At what level they stopped last is the prarabdha karma, as you rightly
Yes.
said. But also at the same time, the so thank you, Mataji. Looks like some of you might drop off, but let's continue this discussion. So what, look at in 1966, when Srila Prabhupada started, the the people in New York City, they were from a Western culture, but they got the association of a topmost devotee, a topmost general of Lord Krishna, and his name was His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The way the association, the mercy, as you said, got, and they just left everything. The extent of surrender was tremendous because the association they got was of a topmost devotee. So it's two things. First, how quickly you could receive, as Prabhuji mentioned, and how quickly the sources, and both are important, and both identifies our ability to receive mercy.
Prabhuji, I want to add one point. I know we are getting delayed. To Niranjan Prabhu's, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj told that the moment we say, I wanted to share so that it may help him. The moment we think that the Krishna is great and we are dasa, automatically humility will start the grow, the seed of the humility will grow, Prabhuji. The moment, the main problem, as we all discussed and Prabhuji explained, is because of the false ego we have. That's why humility stops, or false ego stops the humility. So the humility can be, the best example Prabhuji given is Krishna is being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, I gave this example earlier also, Prabhuji. When a chariot has to be basically navigated, Prabhuji, you know, Arjuna has to tell Krishna by hitting him on the left shoulder or the right shoulder. Should it turn left or should it turn where the chariot should go, right? Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna was ready to take hits from Arjuna through his legs for the direction of the chariot, Prabhuji. So what we are trying to discuss here is that humility will means when you are trying to serve Prabhuji, the humility will automatically come. As if the best which I personal experience is Prabhuji, when you scrub the utensils in our DT kitchen or Radharani's kitchen or in the DT kitchen, the most of the humility will go away, Prabhuji. When we scrub, or like Jayanand Prabhu used to collect garbage bags, Prabhuji. You must be knowing Jayanand Prabhu, we can talk later with me. He used to collect garbage bags coming in the end, not in front of everyone. He used to collect the garbage bags. So humility will come through these services, Prabhuji. Automatically we come to know that we are the servant of servant and I am not the great, Krishna is great. Automatically humility will come. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, you touched on Mr. Rathyatra Jayananda Prabhu, who Srila Prabhupada, he was a disciple. He was a mechanical engineer, but he wanted to be a taxi driver because he could be accessible very close to the temple, and he ended up making magnificent chariots for ISKCON in 1967, 68, 69, in that timeline. So he was given so much of respect by Srila Prabhupada because he passed away earlier than Srila Prabhupada from this material world. So, and he used to collect garbage bags, and he was the epitome of Jayananda Prabhu. If you Google or go to dandavats.com, there's so many articles, beautiful articles. So a lot of wonderful inspirations from Jayananda Prabhu. So start doing service, humility will come automatically. Any other comments?
So it's too late, but can I?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
How are you?
So basically today's we discussed about this service, right? So even the God also does the service to human, right? So, and we all want to attain the Brahman thing. Looks like the path to Brahman is to be Sudras like Chari Varna, like 4 Varna was there, right? Kshatriya, Brahman, Vaishya, and Sudra. So the work division was to say that the service to others was called Sudra. So looks like, I don't know, maybe it is going through to become a Brahman, you have to go through, you have to go the path of Sudra, something like this, right? Or is there any?
No, actually, Sridhar Prabhu, see, there is 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. Based on the skill, you are a Brahman. If you're knowledgeable, you are Brahman. And if you are Kshatriya, if you are mercenaries, you are Kshatriya. And if you are business oriented, you are Shudra. And if you're cleaning oriented, so based on the skill, you have the Varna. But here, Sridhar Prabhu, we are not talking about Brahman. We're talking about Brahman. Brahman and Brahman are a bit different. So Brahman means here in Krishna is saying Brahman means we are Aham Brahmasmi. That means we are spirit souls. We all are actually. Even Sudras, by virtue of their so that is skill based, Sridhar Prabhu. The thing what we're discussing today is the Brahman realize all of us have soul and we all have propensity to transcend. Even as a Shudra, we can transcend. We don't have to go through Kshatriya, Vaishya, Brahman to get into the Brahman realization. Brahman is more like, acquiring knowledge and understanding the Supreme. And that Brahman is different, if that helps, Sridhar Prabhu. They are different.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I was thinking that the service, what we're talking about, is not different than what was classified to do by Shudras, right? So any service you do, like cleaning, everything, is also basically taking you towards becoming a Brahman. Not Brahman, but Brahman.
Brahman, yes. Like say, for example, you're from the land of Lord Jagannath, and for example, the devotee of the Lord, where Bhima Bhoi or Salbek, who are actually of a lower strata in the society, they are like Shudras. Bhima Bhoi was a Shudra, but he had realized the Supreme. So he had transcended himself to a Brahman platform, even if his Varna is from a Sudra. So it is our ability to surrender which makes us accessible and eligible to take knowledge through the service, whether the service of building a small sweater for the Lord, or thinking that the Lord likes a coconut and giving it. And so there are different personalities. I know you know all those personalities from the land of Lord Jagannath, where they are from a lower strata of the Varna, but they have gone on to do exemplary. They are all realized. They are all Brahman realized. There are kids. They are so powerful kids. They are so realized. So it is essentially trying to recognize that there is a Supreme and how we can receive mercy from him by doing an unalloyed devotional service. Okay, bro.
Thank you, bro.
One point, Prabhuji, before I'll close quick. Sridhar Prabhu, it is also your consciousness. As Prabhu told, your skill may be of a Kshatriya, but it is the consciousness which brings us to the Brahman level. So it is a transformation of the consciousness what we have to go through. The transcendence happens to the transformation of the consciousness, Prabhuji. So we have to transform our consciousness, and as Prabhu has told, it is a process. It is not a overnight. Even Sukruti might be another different, but it's not an overnight process, Prabhuji. It's a journey, Prabhuji, and we have to traverse, understand, and then it will transform our consciousness. Over, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So wonderful topic we are discussing. It's very, very encouraging. I'm sure you all are getting some bliss. Any other comments? Yes,
I have
please.
a small question and shouldn't take much time.
Sure. Go ahead.
The chanting of Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, what should be the length of one chant? Like, I mean to say not 100, but suppose just to complete Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. What should be the length of duration of that thing?
Yeah, a wonderful question. So, Prabhu, whenever we chant on the beats, it has got 108 Tulsi beats, and it's end with a head beat, which is 109 beat. So, the typical duration, it varies. It's 8 minutes, Prabhu. It is recommended that one round of chanting is 7 to 8 minutes. And if you're a fast chanter, it may be 6 to 7 minutes. If you're a slow chanter, it will be 8 to 9 minutes, but the typical is 8 minutes to chant the whole round of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The second one is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Like that, 108 times is around 8 minutes, Prabhu.
And the breathing should be one breathing for one chant, or it should be multiple chanting within the same breathing, or there is no relation?
There is no, these are all, there is no technicalities, but as your quality of chanting improves, there are chanting workshops, Prabhu. So, in order to kind of sharpen your chanting, we have Mahatma Das Prabhu from ISKCON. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He holds chanting workshops, but those are all recommended, but it's not, you need not start with that. There people chant with the beats and near the heart, because Krishna is in the heart. That's absolutely fine. And he has added chanting with breathing, but there is no hard and fast rule. And there is a pastime from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, where the chanting can technically be done anywhere. So there is no breathing related rules, Prabhu, as recommended by our divine grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Thank you.
The only thing, Prabhuji, one and the only thing which matters is you should be able to hear what you are chanting, Prabhuji. Speed can be adjusted. If you can hear and connect, that is all Acharya says, should be able to hear what you are chanting, basically.
Right. So when you are chanting, whatever you are uttering, you should be hearing, so that you're focusing on Krishna, and your sense of speaking is for Krishna, your sense of hearing is for Krishna. And if you have a photo in front of you of Krishna or Jagannath, so your sense of sight is, so you are engaging all your senses. That's another thing. Yeah, you should be able to utter and hear and meditate. And as time progresses, you will have more techniques. Prabhu will also tell you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
All right, so let's end here. We have Gita Jayanti coming up on the 3rd of December. There's a big planning underway to make Gita Jayanti, the advent of Bhagavad Gita. It's on the 3rd of Mokshada Ekadasi, 3rd of December this year. There'll be big celebrations. So watch out for that. So thank you all for attending the Kartik Purnima last Monday. It was a wonderful festival. So we can end here. Generally, we end within an hour, but it took long. It's all because of wonderful participation. Let's all chant with prayer mantra to Vaishnavas by saying Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo Vaishnava vrinda ki jai. Bhagavad Gita.
Jagannath Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.